Let the stories carry you into sleep. Most people think trauma screams, mine whispered. From the outside, I was functioning, maybe even thriving. A decent job, polite smile, friends who thought I had it all together. But there was something under the surface, a quiet resistance. Like every time I took one step forward, something pulled me 2 steps back. And I couldn't explain why. It wasn't until I left San Jose for a 6-month contract in Denver that I began to notice the pattern. New city, fresh start, but the same feeling. Like I was performing my own life. Smiling when I didn't mean it. Agreeing to things I didn't want. Avoiding conflict like it might kill me. And every time I caught my reflection in a window, I'd think, who are you doing this for? One night I found myself sitting alone in a dark hotel room, scrolling through an old email draft I never sent. The subject line read, "Things I wish I could say to Mom." I never meant to open it, but I did. I expected bitterness, resentment, maybe anger. What I found instead was a soft ache, a quiet, wordless plea from the younger version of me, the one who never felt seen, who learned early that love was earned, not given. That night, I realized something that terrified me more than anything. My entire adult life was built on the emotional blueprint she left behind, and I'd never questioned it. They say you can't rewrite your childhood, but what if it's not about rewriting, but finally reading the pages you were too scared to open? That was the night I knew if I didn't face Eleanor Grant, not just as my mother, but as the shadow inside me, I'd never truly be free. And I had no idea just how deep her imprint ran. It's strange, isn't it, how one woman's silence can echo for decades. After that night in the hotel, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice, not in words, but in rules, invisible rules. Don't cry, be good, stay small, don't make it harder for her. Mrs. Eleanor Grant never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Her disappointment was enough to shrink a room. I thought I left her behind in California. Turns out I brought her with me, in the way I apologized too much, in the way I flinched when someone got too close. Carl Jung once said that the mother is the child's first god. That hit me harder than I expected, because I realized I still worshipped mine, not with love, with fear, with obedience, with the belief that if I could just be enough, I'd finally earn her warmth. The deeper I looked, the more it made sense. Why I dated women like Jessica, emotionally distant, but always just out of reach. Why I chased praise from bosses like David, men who dangled approval like a carrot, just like she did. This wasn't coincidence, it was a script. And I'd been playing my role for years without reading the lines. Every decision, every relationship, every damn reaction was a rerun. But here's what cracked me wide open. I wasn't living my life. I was reenacting hers. Her patterns, her fears, her wounds, passed down like a cursed family heirloom I never agreed to keep. And once I saw that, truly saw it, I started asking a dangerous question. What happens to a man when he stops being the son she taught him to be? The moment you realize your entire personality might just be a coping mechanism, it messes with your head. After Denver, I went back to San Jose, but nothing felt the same. Every conversation with friends started sounding scripted. I couldn't unsee it anymore. The way I laughed too quickly to ease tension, the way I agreed just to avoid disapproval. It wasn't me. It was someone I became for her. Growing up, Eleanor Grant never needed to punish me. She only needed to go quiet. Her silence could last hours, sometimes days. And as a kid, I learned to read her mood like a weather report. If she frowned, I adjusted. If she sighed, I shrank. If she looked disappointed, I erased myself just to win back her smile. That was the exchange, or my authenticity for her approval. Turns out that deal followed me into adulthood. I saw it most clearly with Jessica. She reminded me of Eleanor in the worst ways, emotionally distant, withholding, perfectly composed. I mistook her coldness for elegance. I called it grace under pressure, but really, it was just absence. And I kept chasing her love like it was oxygen. David, my boss, wasn't much different. The compliments came once a quarter. I lived for them. Worked overtime, skipped vacations, stayed silent when I should have spoken up. All for one line of recognition. But here's what hit hardest. I wasn't choosing these people. I was choosing the same emotional punishment over and over, as if something in me needed it, needed to earn it, just to believe I was enough. That night, alone again, I asked a question I never dared ask out loud. What if I've never actually met me? Because I've only ever been who she taught me to be. The scariest part wasn't realizing I was still living by Eleanor's rules. It was realizing I thought they were mine. As a kid, I didn't question them. You don't question gravity or the sun rising. You just learn to survive under it. And in our house, survival meant one thing: earn your place. Praise came with achievement. Affection came with compliance. Silence was rewarded more than truth. If you cried, you were dramatic. If you spoke up, you were selfish. The message wasn't loud, but it was clear. If you want love, don't be a burden. Be exceptional. I got straight A's, won awards, was voted most likely to succeed. But every victory came with a whisper. Now she'll see me. Now she'll smile. She did, sometimes briefly. Then the bar moved again. And I kept chasing it. Into college, into adulthood, into boardrooms where I worked myself to exhaustion, trying to be enough for people who didn't even know I existed 10 years ago. But the truth hit hardest in my relationships. Jessica wasn't cruel. She just didn't offer warmth freely. And that felt familiar. Too familiar. I told myself I was being patient. In reality, I was reenacting the same emotional starvation, hoping this time it would end differently. It never did. Love had become a transaction in my mind, something to be earned, negotiated, performed for. And even when someone like Miss Lean offered it gently, without demand, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't trust it. Because somewhere deep down, the boy inside me still believed real love doesn't come freely. It has a cost. And I had no idea what life would feel like if I stopped paying it. Funny how the people who love you right can feel like a threat when you've only known love that hurts. That's how it felt with Miss Lean. We met through work. Brief chats during late meetings, quiet observations in busy rooms. She was direct, unbothered, calm in a way that unnerved me. One evening, after a meeting ran late, she asked if I wanted to grab ramen. I said yes, before I had time to talk myself out of it. She didn't ask probing questions. She didn't fill silences. She just existed next to me without asking me to perform. And for some reason that terrified me more than any cold shoulder ever had. Halfway through the meal, I laughed too hard at something she said, a reflex I couldn't kill. She paused, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't have to try so hard, you know." I froze. Because that sentence, simple, kind, terrifying, cracked something wide open. No one had ever said that to me before. Not Eleanor, not Jessica, not even me. Miss Lean wasn't trying to fix me. She wasn't even trying to understand me. She just saw me. And that, for someone like me, felt unbearable. Because when someone finally looks at you without expecting anything back, you realize how long you've been hiding, even from yourself. And worse, you start to wonder who you are when the mask finally slips. You don't realize how much of your life is built around waiting, until someone finally stops asking you to prove your worth. After that dinner with Miss Lean, something shifted, not all at once. It was subtle, like noticing you've been clenching your jaw for years and suddenly letting it go. But then came the guilt, the reflex to retreat. The voice inside that whispered, "She's going to leave. Don't get used to this. Don't trust it." That voice sounded a lot like Eleanor. It hit me then. I wasn't just afraid of losing love. I was afraid of receiving it freely. Every time someone offered kindness without condition, I didn't know how to hold it. It felt foreign, suspicious. I didn't know how to let myself be seen, because being seen had always come with a cost. So I started small. I stopped apologizing for needing space. I said no, even when my hands trembled. I took myself out to dinner, alone, and didn't look at my phone once. I wrote letters to the version of me that still thought love had to be earned. And slowly, I began to understand. Healing wasn't about rewriting my past. It was about becoming the parent I never had. But even as I learned to mother myself, a question I couldn't shake kept creeping back in. If I've lived this long performing for love, what happens when I finally stop performing? Freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes as a quiet decision, made in the middle of a Tuesday. One afternoon, Jessica texted me. Nothing dramatic. Just a check-in. But I felt it. The old reflex kick in. That need to be polite, responsive, agreeable. I stared at the screen for 10 full minutes, fingers hovering over the keyboard. And then I did something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. I didn't respond. Not to punish her, not to be cold, but because I finally understood I didn't owe her an explanation for choosing peace. That moment felt small, almost boring, but it was the first time I had ever chosen myself, without permission. The next day, David made a backhanded remark in a meeting, something he might have gotten away with before. But this time, I looked him in the eye and said, "That's not helpful. Let's focus on the work." It was calm, clean, no drama, but inside I was shaking. Not with fear, with power. Because the truth is, healing isn't always poetic. It's often awkward, clumsy, full of false starts and second-guessing. But every time you choose yourself, not in theory, but in practice, you reclaim a piece of the life you were supposed to live. And for the first time in years, I started to feel something I couldn't name. Not happiness, not confidence, something deeper. Maybe it was the first taste of real self-respect. But then something unexpected happened, and it cracked that fragile piece wide open. It's wild how peace can shatter faster than chaos. A week after I set my quiet boundaries, the letter came. Not an email, not a text, an actual envelope, handwritten, no return address. The handwriting stopped me cold. It was hers. Eleanor Grant. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 3 years. The last conversation ended the same way most did, with her accusing me of being ungrateful and me trying not to cry like a child. Inside the letter was just one sentence. "I don't know who you've become, but I hope you're happy now." That was it. No apology, no warmth, just a signature that felt like a final door slamming shut. For a moment I felt the old panic rise, that need to explain, to soften, to fix what wasn't mine to fix. But it didn't come. Instead, I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, and sat in silence, not as a punishment, as a choice. Because maybe healing doesn't mean reconciliation. Maybe it means realizing the chapter will never close the way you hoped, but you still get to write what comes next. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She gave me the first page of my story, but not the last word. And maybe the cruelest thing about growing up is realizing that some people will never understand the damage they caused, because to them, they never broke anything. Thanks for listening. If this story helped you unwind, don't forget to like and subscribe channel Reddit Stories to Fall Asleep too. There's a new tale waiting for you every night, right here. Sleep well.